And I'm also going to ask Saudi Arabia and OPEC to bring down the cost of oil. You got to bring it down, which frankly, I'm surprised they didn't do before the election. That didn't show a lot of love.
Love. What is this? A breakup text. Saudi Arabia is a ruthless economic machine, not a high school sweetheart. Trump's acting shocked that they didn't lower
With oil prices going down, I'll demand that interest rates drop immediately, and likewise, they should be dropping all over the world.
Prices. The only love they care about is
that
cash.
was President Donald Trump at the World Economic Forum back in January, announcing that he would pressure Saudi Arabia to produce more oil in order to bring inflation down, and that would allow him, Donald Trump, to pressure the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates. That's the plan. That's how he's going to lower inflation. That's how he's going to make the cost of borrowing lower. But Saudi Arabia is putting a damper on Trump's efforts, telling officials that it's just unwilling to augment oil supplies to bring costs down. I mean, think about it. Let's just pause for a second. Saudi Arabia is rich because of what? Because of oil. It is one of the top oil producing countries. And if you produce a lot of oil and you have more supply, thus bringing the cost down, Saudi Arabia loses money. So they kind of have a vested interest in manipulating oil prices by holding back production. We're gonna get into more details on that in just a minute, but this is how the OPEC cartel works, okay? This is how it works. It's important to understand it because oftentimes our politicians lie to us about how all we need to do is drill, baby, drill. Drill, baby, drill in America. If we're not producing enough oil. We're the top oil producer in the entire world. We're also the top oil exporter in the entire world. But we'll get back to Saudi Arabia in just a minute because first we should get familiar with what is happening in regard to energy production in the United States and elsewhere. Now, remember, Trump said this repeatedly on the campaign trail.
What is the first thing you would do to help bring down the cost to make things more affordable?
Drill, baby.
Right there. Trump's drill, baby drill fantasy just hit a brick wall. U.S. oil companies aren't increasing production despite deregulation because they learned their lesson from the last oil crash. They're focused on profits, not politics. Trump is out here selling a dream that even his own allies don't believe in.
Drill, drill, baby, drill. We're gonna drill, baby, drill. Drill, baby, drill.
Are you? Because it doesn't seem like that's happening. And the reason why that's not happening is because America's oil producers don't want to. Okay, so this is according to the Wall Street Journal. They report that another American oil boom isn't in the cards soon, no matter how many regulations are rolled back, according to oil executives. After many producers over-drilled themselves into bankruptcy during the shale boom heyday, the industry is now focused on keeping costs down. And what do they have a fiduciary responsibility to do? Return cash to their investors. That is what they're focusing on right now. So clearly, Donald Trump's plans to drill, baby, drill here in the United States, not working out. It's not coming to fruition at the moment. So Trump's advisors say that the best strategy to bring down oil prices is to persuade OPEC countries, these are oil producing countries, also known as the OPEC cartel, or organizations of.
Yeah, no kidding. Saudi Arabia is playing chess while Trump is still figuring out the rules. They're not about to sacrifice their own economy just to make America's inflation problem go away. Trump thinks he can just talk them into it. Meanwhile, they're holding all the cards and calling the shots.
The petroleum exporting countries and Saudi Arabia to ramp up oil production. In other words, he wants other oil producing countries to drill more, produce more, so we have more supply, bring costs down. There's just one teeny tiny problem. Saudi Arabia, not buying it. They're not interested in doing it because it is not in their best interest to lower energy prices, considering oil is what makes that country wealthy. Keith Kellogg, Trump's special envoy to Ukraine and Russia, has said global producers should try slashing oil prices to $45 a barrel to pressure Russia into ending war with Ukraine. Now, their oil production is one of the ways that they're still making money. And so if you produce more oil, it kind of undercuts Russia's oil production, and they're going to lose money through that, right? That's the idea. However, these insanely low oil prices would be a complete and utter disaster for Saudi Arabia. So the last time prices sank below $45 a barrel during the pandemic in 2020, it prompted a painful war for market share between Saudi Arabia and Russia and pushed dozens of shale drillers into bankruptcy. At lower oil prices.
And that's the brutal truth. They don't care about US inflation. They don't care about the Federal Reserve. And they sure as hell don't care about Trump's political ambitions. They care about one thing: money. This is a raw power play. And Trump, for all his deal-making bravado, is the one begging at the table.
Saudi Arabia would struggle to generate enough revenue to pay for social services, monthly payments to citizens, and big infrastructure projects. It will need about $90 a barrel this year to balance its budget, according to the International Monetary Fund. Saudi Arabia doesn't give a damn about the United States. They don't care about what we're dealing with inflation. They don't care about any war in Russia, Ukraine. Who cares? They care about their own wealth and the ability to balance their own budget. And the idea of going down to $45 a barrel is ridiculous to them. It would crush them. They need to be at $90 a barrel. You guys see how this international oil market works? It's all connected. So the reason why the US is furious with countries like Venezuela is because they've nationalized their oil. Now, they do also trade or export oil in the global economy. But when you, as a country, when the people of that country own the natural resources and it doesn't belong to multinational corporations, well, then they get to make decisions about how much oil they produce, where the oil goes. They can ensure that the oil actually benefits their own people first. We don't have that situation in the United States. The American taxpayers, American people do not own our own natural resources. They belong to the oil companies, and they're gonna go ahead and export wherever they please. And the same goes for other oil producing countries. And so let's get to what Trump has tried to do in order to kind of reinvigorate oil companies in America. He's been slashing regulations, right? And he's like, look. You don't have to worry about environmental regulations anymore. You don't have to worry about national monuments. I'm gonna rezone things and make it easier for you to drill where you want. But apparently there are some issues there as well. So his advisors are saying that the lack of regulations, including making it easier to build pipelines, could appeal to investors. More capital flowing to the industry is expected to increase output, but not anytime soon. It's gonna take a while. And this could take many years. In fact, even with Trump's deregulation in mind, Ed Crooks, who's the vice chairman at energy consulting firm Wood Mackenzie, told the Wall Street Journal, quote, "We don't see anything that will make a colossal difference to the economics of production." Oil executives are noting that US production is already at record highs. So remember, on one hand, you'll hear Republican lawmakers and Trump himself argue, the Democrats, they're the ones who have stood in the way of oil production. We're not producing oil anymore. That's not true at all. Beginning with the Obama administration, we have been the top oil producing country in the world. We're also the top exporter of oil in the world. So the idea that we're not drilling enough is laughable. And even the oil executives are saying that, okay? Oil executives note that US production is already at record highs, but they do expect production to increase a little bit this year. The Energy Department projects domestic output will rise about 2% to about 13.7 million barrels a day by December, and then stay relatively flat in 2026. And aside from improving the US economy through more oil production, Trump also wants to slap Iran with additional sanctions, to make his daddy, Bibi Netanyahu, happy in Israel, of course. But when he does that, well, that's going to limit the global oil supply because Iran is one of the major oil producers. We don't buy oil from Iran, but China does. And if it's harder for China to buy oil from Iran, they're going to want to buy oil from other oil producing countries, thus limiting the supply for importers of oil. And so that's going to make the cost go up as well. Those two policies are leading to some tension when it comes to Donald Trump's agenda in lowering inflation so he can then go to the Federal Reserve and urge them to continue lowering interest rates. And that's the other thing. Chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, surprisingly has pushed back against Donald Trump's pressure to lower interest rates. About 6 days ago, it was reported that Trump was pressuring Powell to lower interest rates, and he's noticing that inflation is ticking up again. He's like, nah, we're not gonna do that. So look, we'll see how it develops. But the whole purpose of me doing this story is so people understand how the oil industry really works, how everything is tied together globally, how the decisions of an OPEC cartel member country like Saudi Arabia has a big influence on the price of oil globally. And, there are other options if we're looking for, ways to diversify our energy, how we get our energy. I know a lot of people get touchy about this, but I really do think focusing on the cleanest form and most reliable form of energy we have at the moment, nuclear, is a better option than destroying the environment by drilling more. I think it would be better than relying on a country like Saudi Arabia to produce more oil. But right now, we are slaves to the whims of OPEC cartel countries. And that's just the reality of the situation.
Trump's entire plan is built on wishful thinking. He talks tough about energy independence while simultaneously begging a foreign power to solve America's problems. He claims Democrats are stopping oil production, while U.S. production is already at record highs. And his big solution to inflation? Hope Saudi Arabia suddenly decides to be generous. Saudi Arabia played him. They know how the game works, and they're winning it. Meanwhile, Trump's out here trying to sell a fairy tale about American energy that doesn't match reality.